What is up, guys? Welcome in to yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. There's a lot of things to get to. I'm not even sure we're going to get to it all. We got some Cardinals talk. There's no more excuses. Kevin Durant, more trade speculation. But the good times keep on coming with the Diamondbacks. So I'll talk to you guys in a couple of seconds.
The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need him. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like callus. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia Show.
What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and watch the program early in the morning. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. We have a lot of things to get into, so let's just dive right into all of it. Yesterday, there was some chatter in the chat about the Diamondbacks beating up on the Yankees, and largely my response was, I understand baseball isn't a massive grabber of attention for the people in the Valley. So I will selectively pick when I talk about it. Because ultimately, in the words of the great Colin Cowherd, you drive the show. You tell me what you want to listen to, what you want to watch. And if I just start talking about the WNBA, which no shade there, but there's a reason why people haven't talked about it pre-Caitlin Clark, is because I would like the viewership. I would like you guys to watch it. So yesterday, the Arizona Diamondbacks come out and get a win against the New York Yankees 4-3, 3-game winning streak. The good times are starting to roll. The Cubs series was a little worrisome, because the Cubs aren't a very good team, and you would like to see them win at least a series at home to start the season. But call it what it is. It's a successful road trip so far. They'll head over to the Nats later on in the week. But that Yankees win last night, I know it's not fair, but I was just kind of chalking it up to a loss. Because Zac Gallen hadn't been the type of pitcher that we had seen in the first half of the World Series year, where he was the all-star starter. After that, he hasn't been great. And in that Philly series, he was challenging hitters. Part of Zac Gallen's MO is thinking he can just blow the ball past players with his four-seamer. And I understand that's his bread and butter, and he enjoys that, but he really needs to develop some of that off-speed stuff. It's not necessarily me saying like he needs to have it. He needs to incorporate it in what he does. And yesterday you saw that. It was more patience, less going after the Yankees aggressively, a lot of knuckle curves down and away. And listen, everyone was worried about those torpedo bats, right? And it took the Diamondbacks exactly 3 games to realize, pitch it down and away, keep it on the outsides. Don't give him anything great to hit. Outside of Anthony Volpe, who's had a home run in each of the last 2 games, the bats have been largely silent. And then it leads me to this. I know Corbin Burnes wasn't lights out yesterday or 2 days ago, and we didn't talk about it because they won. But ultimately, again, we're going to selectively pick when we talk about these two teams. But the Diamondbacks against the Torpedo Bats that everyone was worried about. This is a Yankees team whose bats were on fire over the weekend. They had like 9 home runs in one singular game. The Diamondbacks combination of Corbin Burnes and Zac Gallen, 11 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 bases on balls, 21 strikeouts. And Corbin Burnes wasn't necessarily elite 2 days ago. He was good. He wasn't $210 million Corbin Burnes, but he was good. Gave up 2 runs, allowed some guys to get on base. He was the one that did walk all 3 of those guys. But Corbin Burnes isn't the X factor for this team. We know what we're getting in him. There might be a little bit of an adjustment period just because he's going from a different team, and baseball is so weird. It's just so weird. Some years you have elite pitchers like Joe Mantiply was an all-star for the Diamondbacks a few years ago. It's just strange the way it works. And Corbin Burnes might have a little bit of an adjustment period, but I'm not worried about him. He's a $210 million man. He's going to be great, especially with his ability to throw that cutter ball. And honestly, I want to single out one singular pitch, but he is great all the way around. But again, not worried about Corbin Burnes. He's going to be fine. This season, if you were to pick one X factor 4 or 5 games into the season, it's Zac Gallen. Because, again, we know how good Corbin Burnes is. He's a top 5 pitcher in baseball. He's one of the few aces in baseball. He is going to stop the bleeding if your team ever goes on a 3-4 game losing streak. That's what he's there for. We're not worried about him. If Zac Gallen can get to some semblance of what he was in the World Series year, pre-All-Star break, this team will make the World Series. If you, each and every night, are rolling out Corbin Burnes and Zac Gallen, who is closer to an ace than not an ace, maybe over the last maybe the last year and a half, he's been a little bit lesser than that. But if you are running co-aces out there, that is a recipe to win a World Series. Even if your lineup isn't great, even if your bullpen isn't amazing. But the Diamondbacks have both of those things. Pretty good bullpen, pretty good lineup. And when you add Corbin Burnes and Zac Gallen to that mix, as long as Zac Gallen can get back to some semblance of what he was the World Series year, pre-All-Star break, and some of post-All-Star break, this team doesn't have anyone to worry about. That's the best 1-2 punch in baseball if both guys carry their weight. Zac Gallen's ability to get guys out with that knuckle curve, if he continues to incorporate some of his off-speed stuff to complement his fastballs, that is going to be the X factor. And if Gallen can get back to what he was, this is a World Series-esque team. There's no one I fear. I don't fear the Dodgers. The Dodgers lineup might be a little bit better than the Diamondbacks. Their rotation is not. Their bullpen is not. If anything, it's a wash in the bullpen. So this season largely comes down to Zac Gallen. Which Zac Gallen are we getting? It's going to be the final year of Zac Gallen in Arizona. But are we getting World Series year Zac Gallen, or are we getting first game of the year Zac Gallen, where he's closer to a 3 than an ace? Or are we getting it to where he's closer than an ace than a 3? That's how the Diamondbacks won the World Series in 2001. Kurt Schilling, Randy Johnson, co-aces. And if you can run out in a series, let's say it's the NLDS, 4 of the 5 games are Corbin Burnes and Zac Gallen, good luck to the other team. Same with the NLCS. In 5 of the 7 games, if you can roll out Corbin Burnes and Zac Gallen, and they're pitching to the best of their abilities, not a lot of teams are going to have a success there. So, yesterday was a good step in the right direction. And if those two guys, I guess I should say, and if Zac Gallen, the X factor this season, is going to pitch up to his standard in a contract year, sky's the limit. World Series is the limit for this team. And there's no one I fear, especially with those two guys on the mound. Menacing presence, bleep you mentalities. That's what I like to see. And also, Zac Gallen last night when he was getting pulled out of that game, he was letting Torrey have it. God, I love that. It's Torrey's job to calm the guy down and say, hey man, 6 2/3, you were great. 13 strikeouts. It's early in the season. We don't want to overuse you. Come take a seat. It's his job. And it's Gallen's job to fight tooth and nail when you have 13 strikeouts through 6 2/3 and 0 earned runs to not be pulled out of that game. But he was, and it's what happens. But I love that. That's the competitive fire that we haven't seen from Gallen in a little bit. So much improved over opening day. And this team is going to go as far as those two guys, Corbin Burnes and Zac Gallen, will take them. And that is zero worries in me that that's a team that can make the World Series, that could win the World Series. All right, moving over to the Phoenix Suns. Whew, that was fun. It's always nice to talk about a team that actually does a lot of winning here. Moving over to the Phoenix Suns. Yesterday we saw, maybe you guys didn't see, and I guess that's my job. Apparently, Gambo said he's expecting Beal and Durant to be off the Suns this offseason. And it's going to be the most intriguing offseason in the history of him covering the Suns. Here's what I take from that. Kevin Durant's gone. Gambo is not someone, regardless of how people feel about him, that blows smoke. There has been a community of Suns fans who, and I don't mean to throw shade, see guys like Flex from Jersey tweet something, which I haven't seen in a while, so maybe he's done doing that. Evan Sider retweets something, and people point to it like it's actual news. There's like 3 guys you can lean into as being the insiders for the Suns that you can actually put your arms around. Dwayne Rankin, Gerald Bourguet, John Gambadoro. Now, I'm not trying to go after the first 2 guys, Dwayne Rankin and Gerald Bourguet. They do great work. But Gambo's up here. Those 2 guys are right here. Still reliable, still good sources, but Gambo gets the bulk of those stories. Gambo doesn't say this unless he knows something. And the guy's largely right about the Suns. So I think we can close the chapter on Kevin Durant as a Phoenix Sun. One of the reasons why I think Kevin Durant won't come back this year, now I largely do believe he will come back, but if he's held out for whatever reason, I think it's largely due to the fact that the Suns don't want him to get hurt. Now, sprains another ankle, whatever. Big injuries, ACLs, Achilles. You don't want to see Kevin Durant do that again. So that's one reason why I think he might continue to get pulled out and it's not his decision. Or maybe they hold him out because, ankle isn't doing as well or whatever. But it's time to start thinking about life without Kevin Durant. When Gambo says something, it leads me to believe it's going to happen. And that's the first part of this. Kevin Durant's gone. Think about life without Kevin Durant. You could start thinking about trade packages. I know Gambo feels very, very strongly about an Eason, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith package to the Phoenix Suns and their first-round picks back. I know Gambo feels very confident in that would be a package. But there's other names out there. We saw Shams Charania talk about it. The Timberwolves are very intriguing. Jaden McDaniels, a couple of first-round picks. But the one that I think is really interesting is Khalil Ware from the Miami Heat. If Kevin Durant says he wants to move on, and the Miami Heat are on his preferred trade destinations list, because listen, KD's got to work with the Suns here a little bit on his trade request. So with that being said, if KD does have them on his roster of who he's willing to go to, the Miami Heat are really interesting. This isn't me praying that the Suns trade KD. I'm just seeing around corners. And when Gambo says this stuff, I got to listen. But you look at the Miami Heat, there's some interesting players there. Could you get a couple of first-round picks? Could you get a Robinson or a Jaime Jaquez? And the prize of that pack would be Ware. Would you be able to get him? A 7-foot guy, handle the ball a little bit, and is having an outstanding rookie season. What the Suns are missing are a big man is a big man that they can plug and play at the 5 position without him just being a statue down low. So if there's a trade out there that's really interesting to me, and I would think long and hard about, it's the Miami Heat. The only reason why I might not do that deal is because getting your picks back from Houston is intriguing. And you look at some of those players, Eason and Jalen Green and Jabari Smith and a couple of firsts. That's great. But I almost always would rather the high ceiling player of Ware from the Miami Heat. Jaime Jaquez values has dipped a bit this year. Maybe a Duncan Robinson. But what the Suns got to do is they can't give up height. They can't give up how small they are already. So whatever trade the Suns do, I would like to see someone come back who's a bigger forward. Jabari Smith's a bigger guy, but not exactly what you're looking for. He's not small by any stretch of the imagination. And he would fit fine in the lineup. But Jaden McDaniels, bigger forward, can shoot the 3 a little bit. Where his ability to space the floor a little bit, run the floor as well. Athletic, handle the ball a little bit. That's interesting. But I say all this just to say it's time to start thinking about life without Kevin Durant. Because it's coming, and it's not going to stop. He is not going to be a guy that's here next season, barring some incredible setback. And we've talked about it, right? We went back and forth. Are the Suns going to move on from him? Are the Suns going to keep him? You see this report yesterday, combined with Shams Charania, combined with things Woj just said in the past. You know it's over. You know it's over. And that's okay. I think I'm ready for it to be over. I'm not over Kevin Durant. I don't just want Kevin Durant to walk out that door. But what I've recognized is it's not working. And as much as I love watching Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on the same floor together, I'm more interested in winning, and so should you. And you could say till you're blue in the face, Kevin Durant's not the problem. And I'd say, take a breath. I agree with you. But this is the only way for the Suns to get better. Well, trade Bradley Beal. How? I know Gambo said today he doesn't expect Beal to be here either. Sure. I just want to know how. And what is that going to take? 3 first-round picks? Just to move off of Beal? 2 first-round picks? Just to move off from Beal? All right. But you're not going to get anything back that's going to help you. So Booker and a cast of new, younger, athletic, twitchier players. That's what we got to see. And if you're still holding on to any semblance of this team is going to figure it out and they're going to keep these guys, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. It's not happening. I held out a little bit of hope that maybe you could move off of Bradley Beal, find out a way to surround these 2 guys, these 2 uber talented guys. But it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, guys. And I think the quicker you accept that, the better. Because then you can move on to the more important task of, man, that sucks. All right, what are we going to do now? What are we going to move on to? So, it's a tough pill to swallow. But it's over. This team is just a dead man walking, and they're going to blow it up. By that being said, I mean more like a retool. And it's tough, and I sympathize with that, but it's just not happening, guys. It's just not happening. Really quickly, I was debating in my head if I really wanted to talk about this, but we got a decent amount of people in the chat, so let's get into it. And I will continue to talk about this later on as well. But here's what I'll say. I'll bring this up again on Monday. But I want to get this in before I got to head out of here. Can we agree that there's no more excuses for this Cardinals team? let's not just include Kyler in that, right? I don't want to just pick on Kyler. But can we agree there's no more excuses? This defense is good enough. It's not great, it's not elite, but it's good enough. And that's why you hired a defensive head coach, right? To put them in position to succeed. So we're going to learn a lot about the Cardinals this year. After the additions of Calais Campbell, Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson, you have to be able to understand that this is not just a make or break year for Kyler. We're going to learn a lot about Jonathan Gannon and potentially even more about Monty Ossenfort after this draft. Monty's going to bring in a bunch of other new rookies, and his first 2 years have been pretty good. But then we have to see how his free agents work out. Because free agents are just that until they perform. So, when you're evaluating this team this year, regardless of the draft, regardless of who's playing, this is where we're going to learn a lot about the Cardinals. And it's not just a playoffs or bust, or we'll all be disappointed. If the Cardinals don't make the playoffs this year, heads are going to roll. And it could mean Jonathan Gannon's job. It most certainly will mean Kyler Murray's job. Monty Ossenfort potentially is on that list. But you see the players that they've added to help elevate the floor of this defense to where it's not just a pick-you-apart defense for everyone else is taking. Now it's a top half of the defense, where last year it was a bottom 3 defense. That's on Jonathan Gannon. He's got to be better. He's got to coach up this defense, and I believe he will. But even more so than him, it's Kyler Murray. Listen, man, you're going to get another offensive weapon in this draft. They're not just going to take defensive players with every pick that they have. And then Kyler, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., James Conner, whoever they add in the draft. I think they still need another wide receiver, Michael Wilson. There's no excuse anymore. Can we just agree today on April 3rd? There's no excuses for this team, right? Like, Kyler should figure it out. The Cardinals should figure it out. The front office should figure it out. The answer to that question is yes. And that's how I feel about it. And we have to stop coddling this team. No more next year. No more the year after. You added some players. You upgraded the floor. The draft, you'll still add another player, a premier player. You have a 16th overall pick that can be used on offense or defense. And don't look now, but people are falling potentially, like Tedero McMillan, like a Will Johnson, like a Shedeur Sanders. He drops to 16. Someone else wants him. You trade back, or you have the conversation about potentially taking him. But there's no more excuses. This team has to succeed next season. And if they don't, heads will be rolling. Heads will be rolling. And it's not going to be fun, and it ain't going to be cute. So we're going to talk more about this on Monday, but let's come to grips here together. There's no excuses, and I want you to prep yourself from that when we talk about it on Monday. Oof. Aaron, Shedeur must be picked if he's available at 16. You must be new to the show, he said tongue-in-cheek. I've been talking about that for a while. I was the first person to say, hey, listen, if he falls there, you need to have the conversation, but we're going to talk about all that on Monday. I hate to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but until this job starts paying all the bills, I got to head to the real job. Appreciate you guys for making me a part of your day. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. Reminder, Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. local time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and until then, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.